All right, I think I said Vernal. We're switching to Isaac. Remember, Vernal's statement, remember, I'm telling myself, remember, Vernal's statement starts at the store. So we are on Isaac's statement here, so we can get caught up a little bit. We'll skip the beginning stuff. I mean, what was your first impression of them? That they were just, an average family. I didn't really know much about them. I trusted Bob, though, because, Bob's been my friend for over 5 years, so, okay.
And that was the first time you've ever seen Jessica or DeOrr?
That is correct.
What was your first impression of them?
That they were just, an average family. I didn't really know much about them. I trusted Bob, though, because, Bob had been my friend for over 5 years, and so...
So his first impression of them seems like he's putting in his first impression and then a little bit of his later impression of them here. So just and are reductions of commitment. An average family, that's what he's saying is, while they have problems, these problems are problems that you probably see in other families as well, is the word average as opposed to a normal family. I didn't really know much about them. So I didn't really that's an extreme reduction of commitment here. I didn't really know much about them. So that is really telling you here that there's something that's problematic here, because we got a bunch of reduction of commitment around not knowing them and them being an average family. So either he knew them very well, which we learn later that that's not the case. He did not know them at all. And that means that the sensitivity here is around what's about to come after this, which is I. So we have a repeating I, big time sensitivity. Repeating I's are big time sensitivity. I trusted Bob, though. Ooh, that trusted usually means that you don't trust him anymore. So something happened there. Trusted Bob, though, because, we are over-explaining, reduction of commitment. Bob's been my friend for over 5 years, and so is problematic when it leads off, when you start the statement with so, and it's also problematic when you end it with so. It's the same thing in each case. It makes the entire statement very sensitive. So everything that you see in there is amplified when you get a so at the end or at the very beginning. You got the sensitivity. I trusted Bob because, Bob's been my friend, and they seemed like the average family, not a normal family, average, which means there's some negativity that happened here that he thinks is maybe not abnormal. What could that be? That Vernal is violent and yells and made him uncomfortable. That's the most logical answer to that question, and that is my opinion here, because we have a lot of indicators that indicate that. What does he think about Baby DeOrr here? He says, how did he seem? Happy? Yeah, he seemed just like a normal, happy, outgoing kid,
Child seat. How did he seem? Happy?
Yeah, he seemed just like a normal, happy, outgoing kid,
So we have some reduction of commitment. We have just and like back to back. Huge reduction of commitment here. And then he says, at the end. And you don't know, or you wouldn't ask the question. And so 3 massive indicators of reduction here. Now, here he uses normal instead of average. He doesn't say he was your average happy, outgoing kid. He says he was a normal, happy, outgoing kid. This tells me that the sensitivity wasn't with the kid. He seemed just like a normal, happy, outgoing kid. All this reduction of commitment means he wasn't quite as happy as he's trying to make him out to be. And the normal means, why wasn't he happy? He wasn't happy for the same reason that any other kid wouldn't be happy. So again, this points back to the issues around what are, in my opinion, issues with Vernal here. So we're still trying to get caught up to where we're at in Jessica's statement. But here he asks, did Jessica and DeOrr bring any beer or anything like that? And he says, Jessica and DeOrr didn't. I thought, he's starting to say, I thought Bobby brought some, but Bob brought some whiskey and stuff up.
Did Jessica and DeOrr, did they bring beer or anything like that up there?
Jessica and DeOrr didn't. Bob brought some whiskey and stuff up.
So what's stuff? I don't have a lot of experience with stuff. In fact, I don't have any experience with stuff, but I'm pretty sure I know what stuff is. Anyways, he says, Jessica and DeOrr didn't. And then he says, I thought, but he cuts himself off. And then he says, Bobby, which is a change of language. So what's happening right here is Isaac and Bob, they go camping in this location on a regular basis, fairly regular basis. So they go up for a whole weekend to go fishing in a place where there's not a whole lot of fishing. So what are they probably doing there? probably the whiskey and stuff is my guess. I mean, honestly, that doesn't sound like a terrible weekend, but he thought Bobby had brought some, and then he changes that, and because it's not, Bobby's not the right word here. It's not just him on a relaxing weekend, it's Bob. So that means this is more formal. So he says, I thought Bob brought some whiskey and stuff up. So did he bring the whiskey and stuff up? Did he bring the whiskey and not the stuff? He thought he brought some of it, which means he didn't bring some of it, but it sounds like they had the whiskey because he's going to ask him about it in a second. So,
Okay, but he had whiskey.
He had it up there, but he usually brought it with him for other people to drink if they wanted some.
now let's cover this question. Did you guys eat breakfast together? Remember, Jessica covered this. Well, actually, she was deceptive about this. So I want to hear wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey from Isaac here. And he says, did you guys all eat breakfast together? And Isaac says, breakfast. Did we even have breakfast that day? I think we did have breakfast that one, and then he trails off.
Did you guys all eat breakfast together?
Breakfast, if we even had breakfast that day. I think we did have breakfast that one.
What was
So no big breakfast, and it sounds like no wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey either. So that's interesting. Why? What's with the breakfast thing? Like, why are they stumbling? What happened? What's all that missing time? What happened there? Isaac's not talking about it, and Jessica is fumbling over it. So,
well, those are the only two inconsistencies in the story: is who made breakfast and who helped. And by the way, this is coming from law enforcement. I have it on writing. And where the dog was. I don't fucking know where the goddamn dog was. She's the goddamn dog. I never know where she is because she's usually up my ass.
So we'll have to see if we can figure that out later. What was Baby DeOrr like that morning? Yeah, I think he was playing and trying to throw stuff in the fire. Here we go. Here's the fire. And his dad, he only calls him his dad, which to not call someone by their name, to only ever call them by a title is disrespectful unless they're your football coach or your sensei. So in sports, it's normal. Like, hey, coach, but you don't say, like, Isaac is not going to go up to him and say, hey, dad, because that's not his title. That's a different title. That's not his title for Isaac. And so Isaac should be calling him by his name here, but he refuses to. He says his dad got after him for that. You know, just like a normal 2-year-old.
was Baby DeOrr like that morning? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think he was playing and trying to throw stuff in the fire, and his dad got after him for that, just like a normal 2-year-old.
Okay, first off, his dad got after him. That means we have violence here. That explains the sensitivity in Jessica's statement. But he is not talking. His dad is not Baby DeOrr. So read this sentence again. He says his dad got after him, just like a normal 2-year-old. So this is a slip of the tongue, but your brain doesn't make those mistakes. So Isaac views Vernal as an immature, wildly fluctuating, emotionally like a 2-year-old. And he just mixed that when he was thinking of the baby walking around the fire and the dad at the same time. It all came out in the same sentence.
The time I got short with my kid that day. The only time I ever got mad at him because he wouldn't leave the goddamn fire pit alone. He kept wanting to fucking help me cook.
Right.
That's why I know I cooked, because I told Jessica, deal with him, hon. He's gonna fucking get hurt.
Right.
And I got everybody fed. And
So now here he says, what did you do after breakfast? Did you go fishing? Isaac says, I went back to bed because I was still tired. So you don't know what Jessica and DeOrr did? No. When did you get up for the day? Was it in the afternoon? And Isaac says, probably was about noon or so. So I have no doubt that he went back to bed and went back to sleep. But it seems like, now when I say seems like, what I'm saying is he's leading with a reduction of commitment. That means he doesn't believe what he's telling you. And if he doesn't believe what he's telling you, I don't believe what he's telling you. So probably about noon or so. But I would guess it's probably closer to like 10 or 11. He probably went back to sleep. Or maybe he just went into his tent just to hide because he was tired of Vernal yelling or whatever. He's hiding. So we have sensitivity there. Now, we're about to jump back over to Jessica's statement, but before we do, I want to cover this in Isaac's statement so we don't have to jump right back here. This is now right here is where we're starting to get into the incident. So Everything up to this point has been to give you a feel of who is doing what and where. You've got the scene set up. You've got the scenario. Let's see what happens here. So what was going on then? And Isaac says, when I woke up, they were just getting DeOrr in. Jessica, DeOrr, and his dad were all heading. They were gonna head over to the store to see if they could get some gas because they were low on gasoline. This is massive. We've got massive sensitivity in here.
What was going on then?
When I woke up, they were Jessica, DeOrr, and his dad were all heading. They're gonna head up to the store to see if they could get some gas because they were low on gasoline.
And we've got language. We just got stuff in here. We got a repeating when I. So that is technically a repeating I 3 times. The fact that the when is interspersed in there, it doesn't make that a non-repeating I. If it's the same word, you're still repeating the I. If it said when I, where I, who I, then you have a different issue going on in your mind. But this is deception. So I woke up. They were just getting DeOrr. Now, this could be either one, but just is probably in regards to the time. So they were just getting DeOrr in. We have another sensitive statement here. In the truck is what he's about to say, but he cuts himself off. Then he says, Jessica, DeOrr, and his dad were all heading. He left Jessica and the dad out the first time he tries to explain this. So he says they, and then he realizes that they is basically an improper introduction. And so now he's forced to tell you who, but it's sensitive for him. So in, then he says Jessica, DeOrr, and his dad were all heading. And then he has to stop himself and figure out how to finish this. He says they were gonna head over to the store to see if they could get some gas because they were low on gasoline. Okay, what do we have here? We have a bunch of places where he cuts himself off because what he's thinking is going to be incriminating. We have I, which means there's deception in here. Whatever they were going to get there is problematic for him. Or it could be maybe they weren't going to the store. There's something hugely problematic here. And so the interviewer follows up on this. Was the gas station not open when you came through? Did they need it for like a generator or something?
Was the gas station not open when they came through? Or
Yeah.
did they need it for like a generator or something?
I think they needed fuel. For some reason, they needed fuel. I think they were. I can't remember why. But on the way up, yeah, it wasn't open. By the time we got to the store, it wasn't open.
And he says, I think they needed fuel. So that's a problem. He changes from gasoline to fuel. That means now with all of those indicators that we just had above, now we have a change of language here. So a change of language is hugely problematic. A change of language is always going to be around something that is directly relevant to the event. So whatever the gasoline fuel is going to lead to the missing person later. So now you're thinking, what the heck? Why does gasoline or fuel, how does gasoline even turn into fuel? Well, I'm going to get you there. You got to trust me. So he says, for some reason they needed fuel. Okay, for some reason, that means that it's not for the reason of powering a vehicle. And it's not the generator because he mentions the generator in the question, but that he doesn't lead with that in the answer. So I think a reduction of commitment here. They were, and then he says, then he cuts himself off and says, I can't imagine why. Meaning not only did he tell you with the for some reason they needed it, then he doubles down and says, I can't imagine why, meaning he knows that they just filled up. He knows that they don't need fuel. And then he says, but on the way up, yeah, it wasn't open. By the time we got to the store, it wasn't open. So he says it wasn't 3 times. Whatever he's talking about probably wasn't the store, but whatever it wasn't open. So the fuel that changes to gas is in reference to something that is not fuel or gas. They didn't need fuel or gas or diesel or anything else that powers vehicles. So what were they trying to get that wasn't open? And was it at the store? It's possible that the store wasn't open, but if they got gas, then that store probably was open. So let's see if we can figure out what were they trying to get on the way up for this camping trip that's 3 days of nothing, and they had nothing to do. They didn't bring any entertainment. And what is this gas fuel that they didn't need that they tried to make a stop, but it wasn't open. So let's jump back here now to Jessica's statement. And so let's see what Jessica has to say about this. We left off here with Baby DeOrr running around the fire pit, Vernal losing his shit, and Jessica taking the blanket and going and putting it in the truck. So after that, I went to the bathroom. I realized that I had started my period and I didn't have anything. So I told DeOrr we needed to go to the store ASAP. Okay. After that, I went to the bathroom and I realized, okay, so I started my period is the correct way to say that. After that, when I went to the bathroom, I realized, okay, in this case, the word after means it's referring to what's above it, not what's below it, because after comes at the end. So the word after here is in reference to Vernal losing his shit. So then we have, she's going to the bathroom. She started her period, didn't have anything. So I told, oh, that sounds normal until you realize you have a negative plus an explanatory statement here, which is always an indicator of deception. And so something in here is deceptive. Didn't have anything, so I told DeOrr we needed to go to the store ASAP. After we got done with breakfast and cleanup, okay, so now she's talking about breakfast again. Remember, breakfast started, the conversation started, and now we have after. So there was a conversation around breakfast time that gets cut out here. And then she starts her period, supposedly, but we have a negative and an explanatory statement, which means there's direct deception here. So then she says, I told my grandpa that we were going back to town. He handed me $50 and said, get whatever you need and some candy. All right, let me think here. Some candy? I don't know how much longer I can put this off, but yeah, candy means drugs. So is that a stretch here? $50. He handed me $50 and said, get some candy. They tried to get drugs when they were driving down there, but it was closed, or whoever wasn't willing to see them at that time. And the conversation during breakfast around the fire pit was, hey, I'm bored as hell. We need to get some drugs. We need to get something to do to entertain ourselves for the next 3 days. And then remember, we had that indicator from Isaac. I thought he brought whiskey and stuff, where he cut himself off actually when he started to say thought, but he thought he brought whiskey and stuff, and which means he brought the whiskey but didn't bring the stuff. And so now we have a necessary trip to the store that we're calling, maybe she did start a period. We'll see, because this deception here from the negative and the explanatory statement could be around her starting her period, or it could be around the $50 for candy. So we'll keep that in mind and see. It could be both. So DeOrr, little man, and I got into DeOrr's truck and we drove to town. On the way to town, DeOrr told me he wanted to stop somewhere there to get some more diesel in his truck. It was a new truck, so he didn't know if the fuel gauge was correct or not. So when we got into Ledor, we stopped at the stage stop. Okay, so before we stop at the stage stop, which is the gas station with the store there, we have an explanatory plus a negative, and it's in the sentence. So he didn't know if the fuel gauge was correct or not because he had a new truck. That new truck was a used truck, but we got an indication from Isaac earlier that Isaac knew that they had just filled up. So this is an excuse. This is the lie. We can tie that directly here because of Isaac's statement. So they didn't need gas or fuel or diesel. But we already know that. We know $50 for M&Ms is a little much. So they're now at this point, they're just making an excuse. They're going into town to meet the dealer, and the dealer is probably Isaac's dealer, I would guess here, because we know that Jessica and Vernal haven't come here before. They haven't stayed here before. They've said that, and there doesn't seem to be any deception around that. And we know that Grandpa Bob and Isaac do come here on a regular basis and go camping. So they probably do have a dealer here that they probably meet up with before they go camping, have a great time. Like I said before, honestly, this doesn't sound like a bad plan, but they have their routine. They have their routine here. So they're just sending Jessica and Vernal in to meet the dealer. Why does Isaac not go? I don't know. But maybe they did need other stuff. Maybe she was starting her period, and maybe that sensitivity was just about getting the drugs. And maybe they needed food for the baby and supplies and stuff. I'm guessing that conversation earlier around the fire was, who's going to go there and meet with him? And they probably said that they would go because they needed other stuff. So, okay. So they stopped at the stage stop where they told him where he could get diesel. We drove 2 buildings down from the stage stop. Wait a minute. She just said she started her period. Now, I will admit I'm not an expert on this, so maybe it's not that big of a deal when you start your period, but she made it sound like a big deal when she said ASAP. We need to get there ASAP. Then they finished breakfast. Then they cleaned up breakfast. And then they drove all the way from there, which I think they said earlier that it was a 45-minute drive, something like that, because of the dirt road. So they drove back into town. At this point, she's still, that ASAP has worn off. Like, it's not a big deal anymore because they stop at the store and then they continue on. They don't actually, she doesn't actually go in and get the stuff there. So they continue driving. They drove 2 buildings down from the stage stop, and DeOrr went across the street to the hotel to pay for diesel. Wait a minute. Is that, I haven't filled up my car in like a week, but maybe I'm not remembering this right. Do you have to go across the street to a hotel to pay for diesel for your gas before you can go to the gas? No, that's right. They were getting drugs. So they went to the hotel, paid the guy, and then went and picked up their stuff. And when he came back to the truck, he told me their pumps were broken, but there was a place called Peterson Welding that has diesel. DeOrr got directions to Peterson Welding, and we headed down the road. So they're on a goose chase, I guess, to go find their drugs. After being on the road with nothing but houses, I asked him the directions. He told me the directions, and I told him that he needed to turn around because the post office he mentioned was behind us. Are you interested in this story? I'm not. What we are learning here is that, number one, they paid a guy at a hotel, and now they have to go get the guy who has the drugs. We have a bunch of missing time after being on the road, after we turned around, after getting diesel. This is all, she's going into minute detail in here about their trip, which is not missing time, that's over explaining. And we have the missing time within the over explaining, which is them not getting diesel, it's them getting drugs. And so how many lines is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, technically 16, 17. So it starts with an explanatory plus a negative. We get like 17 lines here. So it's a big fat lie. And we already know what it is. Then drove back to the stage stop gas station. Now they've got their drugs. And I'm guessing if Grandpa, are they doing meth or heroin? Or are we talking hard drugs? Well, I'm going to guess probably not, because while that would be a fun thing to do if you weren't with a 75-year-old who had COPD, who probably takes marijuana on a regular basis for that, if I didn't have my 2-year-old there with me, I think harder drugs would be in order, but I'm guessing they probably got weed. Pass the time a little bit better. They're going to stop by the stage stop gas station. I took little man out of his car seat and carried him into the store. I found tampons, the candy my grandpa wanted. Yeah, she has that candy. And then I helped little man pick out his candy. All right. She uses a capital C here, so it's a different kind of candy. We stood at the counter and DeOrr asked if we were hungry. So she's hungry at this point. So now, is that normal? Sure. Of course it's normal. Is it normal to mention this here? No, it's not. This is a statement that she's giving because her son is missing. And now she's talking about being hungry and getting potato wedges and candy from the grocery store. My guess is she might already be high here. She may have already had some, they may have been smoking in the truck, or if it's edibles, they may have had, some edibles in the truck by this time. So we stood at the counter. DeOrr asked if we were hungry. He decided to order some potato wedges. Of course he did. While we were waiting for them to cook,
I noticed there was an older man that was watching little man really close, and the look he was giving him scared me. So at this point, we can probably guess that they're setting up an abduction story here.
That's called out of sequence information. After we got our potato wedges, now we have missing time. Okay, so we have an indicator here. We got the missing time. We've got, I tallied all of this up here. This whole trip to buy the drugs and then go to the store is 26 lines, 272 words. That is a lot more than 9. And that means we have massive deception going on here. Is it just the drugs? It could be. I mean, are we that sensitive about drugs? I mean, maybe. But here, they clearly, to me, hopefully this is also clear to you, that she decided to insert into her statement right here an abduction story. So she is giving you a reason, a clue that you can stumble upon and see, oh, wait a minute. At this point in her story, she saw somebody who was kept looking at little man really close, and she was scared. Well, for one thing, saying an emotion in the correct time is a hard indicator of deception. No one does that. You only do that when you're telling a fabricated story, because in your mind you think, yeah, that goes right here. But at that moment, you're trying to deal with what you're looking at. And you might, in hindsight, realize that you're afraid. But in that moment, especially if you're afraid, you get a bit of tunnel vision. You get this point where you start using your senses. Your vision, your hearing becomes acute. You're looking for a lot of minute details if something scares you. So what I would expect here, if this was truthful, would be a bunch of detail about what this guy was wearing, a better description of him. What was it about the way that he was looking? Because that's what she would have been noticing. If this is a fake story, this was just an old man that was watching little man really close, and the look he was giving him scared me. So she inserts emotion in an inappropriate place, gives no description, which somebody would have had in that situation. It's completely fabricated. And then we have the after. After we got our potato wedges, DeOrr talked to a guy in the store that was driving a semi. Oh, okay. Now she's just throwing in another random guy. There's also this other guy driving a semi. After we paid for our stuff, I asked DeOrr if he could take little man so I could use the bathroom. Okay, we have two missing time statements here, after. These afters are regarding the fabricated line that she put in here. After usually comes right after the deception. So that's this deception, which means all of these lines are probably regarding the drugs. And then we have the after regarding this line that's put in here. And now she went to use the bathroom. Now we do have a statement from Vernal here. And so let's jump over and look at Vernal's statement and see how what Vernal's doing matches up with what we see here. And let me introduce you to Vernal. Here we have Vernal. So I pulled in, the sign said card only. We only had cash. Of course you only had cash. But it said go to DeOrr in across street. So I did. The guy told me they were out of diesel, but Peterson machine. I told him thanks. I had fuel. Okay. So we just ruled that out again. But I didn't know the area, didn't want to run out. So we got directions, but we took the wrong turn past the post office to a dirt road. Just, again, a bunch of information. Look at that. Both of them doing the exact same thing. It's because it's exactly what I told you what it was. That's how people lie. The post office to the dirt road, and Jessica informed me I was wrong. That tells me that Jessica's going to get a beating for something, because Vernal is pissed about something. Anyway, allegedly, in my opinion, that's what that usually means. And she saw the post office, so we pulled in a dirt driveway, turned around and went back and found Peterson. I went in the office, found a redhead guy, and 5'9", middle-aged, said he had fuel around back. So I drove around. He toped off our truck. I paid him, gave him the change, and the three of us went down the road. All right, so they got their drugs. To Stage Stop. And Jess got what she needed. My son picked out his Swedish fish. I grabbed him a bigger bag. I grabbed my Rockstar at the back of the store. We went to the register, all three of us, and the cashier, a short, heavy-set Hispanic woman, said she was going to be right there. She was cooking potato wedges. I told Jessica we should get us some, and my son wanted this Krispy Kreme donut cup, so I bought it, and I waited for her to cook our potato wedges. I was talking to a few people behind us in line. One was a Budweiser truck driver. Another was a truck driver from Utah with Gillith Trucking. Okay, we got more truck drivers here. All right, so we have a bunch, obviously too many lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines to get the drugs. We saw that before. We know what that's about. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have either, I wasn't sure whether to cut this off, whether to include the Budweiser truck driver and the Gillith Trucking in here. We have either 9 lines and 3 potential suspects, or 11 lines and 1 potential suspect, who is, I think the other man was in a booth staring at us. He was looking down whenever I looked at him. All right, so we got this same, they coordinated adding in this statement in here. All of these suspects that could be used as clues towards an abduction story here. This was added in after the fact. That means they're recalling the rest of this, but you have an inserted made up story into the middle of this. And that's what I've got highlighted right here. So Jessica paid the cashier and said she was going to the restroom. Okay, that's where I think we left off with Jessica, right? She said she was going to the restroom. And I put our son and our stuff in the truck. I buckled him in and gave him a potato wedge and a few donut balls, and we waited for Jessica. She came out and we headed back to camp. Okay, let's look at this next sentence here. After, okay, we have a missing time statement here, but it's after. It means we're missing time from up here. Something happened before this right here. So we know that they're loading up on potato wedges, and he got a big bag of Swedish fish and his rock star and whatever else Jessica got. And so let's look at this. He says, after a few miles, Goob, my son. We have a change of language here. Goob is not something we've seen before. And he usually says my son. So this is, I guess, in a weird way, this is a proper introduction as he's saying my son to let you know who Goob is. But it doesn't change the fact that this is a change of language right here to Goob. So we have something's missing. We have missing time right here. And then we have a huge change of language. Now, the missing time, they cut out a lot of things. So the missing time is just one of those indicators, but Goob is a change of language. And that is something that we have to pay very, very close attention to. Change in language means a change in reality. This person is not the same as his son. And I don't see any indication of violence or, he was upset at Jessica earlier, but now he's talking about his son. Let's keep looking. Okay. After a few miles, Goob, my son, asked for his fishies, his Swedish fish. Jessica opened the bag and gave it to him. He and I were teasing each other and laughing. Not laughing, I guess that makes sense. He's high, right? He got his big bag of Swedish fish, and he's laughing now. So their gummies are kicking in, or their weed if they smoked it in the truck. And now we're going to switch back to Jessica here, and I want to see what she says, if she says anything right here about this drive back. Jessica says, I went to the bathroom, went outside. DeOrr was on his phone with someone as he was putting our stuff in the truck. That's what he said. He put the stuff in the truck. So I picked little man up and walked around to the passenger side of the truck and put him in his car seat. Okay, she says she put him in the car seat, and he said he put him in the car seat. So what happened here? We have two different statements. These don't line up here. Putting someone in their car seat is something that you can say without indicators. I put him in his car seat. That's something you've done so many times that you have so many real memories of that to insert it, you just pick up one of those memories of putting your kid in the car seat, one of the literally 1 million times that you've done it, and you say it without indicators. This might be completely fabricated. So it's possible neither one of them put him in the car seat, but they forgot to coordinate this part of their story. And for some reason, it makes sense that Jessica did it. She's the only one who's ever put him in his car seat up to this point. Vernal, for some reason, put that in his statement that he put him in the car seat. Then she says, I gave him some potato wedges, and he had a cup of Krispy Kreme donut holes and a small bag of Swedish fish. Okay, she says a small bag. Vernal said a large bag here. But my question here is now, so he had if this is a false memory, neither one of them put him in the truck. And he was in the truck. He stayed in the truck while they went inside. So why would they lie about that? Because nobody saw the kid go inside, right? When they interviewed people inside, nobody saw him. And it would appear here that he didn't go inside because it seems like he was in the car the entire time. Were they just sensitive about leaving him in the car? Like that's bad parenting? Is that why they pretended like he went inside? But now we have a small bag of Swedish fish. Does it matter the size of the bag? Does it matter that there's a difference there? I don't know. The size of the bag is weird. I opened his Swedish fish. Okay, he says, both of them said that she opened it. And we headed back towards the campground. When we were driving up the road, going towards the campground, little man was in the back, and he kept saying, bad fishy. And DeOrr looked back and said, what did that fishy ever do to you? And we all started laughing. So, you see what I see here? Bad fishy means that the gummy fishy that he was eating was not a Swedish fish. Baby DeOrr ate some gummies here, and they all started laughing hysterically. This right here is problematic. I looked it up, and back in at this time, about 2015, gummies, if they were, edibles that were gummies at this time usually had somewhere between 50 to 100 milligrams of THC. For a 2.5-year-old that Vernal said is small for his age, it would only take about 139 milligrams of THC to kill him. So if he had 3 gummies, that's enough to kill him. Possibly 2 gummies if they were more than 50. If they're up to about 75 milligrams, 2 gummies would be enough. And it looks like they were all laughing. She said, we all started laughing. I bet my opinion here, from the language that we've seen up to this point, is they either fed him some gummies in between his Swedish fish, and he said, ooh, bad fishy, it doesn't taste right. And they probably laughed hysterically because they were already high. They were going in getting freaking donuts and Swedish fish. So they probably thought it was hilarious. They probably thought it would be hilarious to go back and just let him walk around, acting goofy. And he becomes their entertainment for the night. So let's keep going here and see what happens. The next thing she says is, she says started laughing. So we have a missing time statement, started laughing. This starting laughing means that laughing is going to end soon, but it's also, we have missing time. So this could be literally the starting before the laughing means that this could be feeding him the gummies is the missing time here. So